we were very specific about having Black nurses, as many Black nurses as possible, be in the room with me. Um, and that's and all races of people do it. Indians go, Indian people to go to the hospital, they request to have as many as possible. They that's their first request, to have Indian nurses. They Because it's, we don't have to really explain ourselves. If everybody else does it, we should be doing it. And especially with under the conditions and the genocide that we experience in the West. So I mean, it's just awful. I can't even watch it. I don't know. I've seen it. I've seen multiple things like this, not just this one, but yeah, it's just really sad, and it's actually it's like it makes you angry because it's like not really. I'm not angry at like the woman for answering. Um, but I just know, I'm just thinking, we can all say like, if I was in that position, I wouldn't be da 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 da. But when you in that position, you just answering. But I would, I swear to you, I would not be answering that woman. I'd be like, I wouldn't be saying nothing. I'd just be focusing. But yeah, I feel sorry for the system and all the women that really have to go through all of this. So yeah.
Sorry, was getting something to drink. So I appreciate that, Sister Sure. Let me hear from Real Black Gentleman. What say you to this?
I mean, it's again like not being able to move her, have her professionally, you know, move and had her situated for imminent birth, and she's clearly in pain, probably in pain, all kinds of pain, right? So yeah, it's just watching it, knowing that you can do all this stuff after the fact. Does she look like she really can think straight? For example, it's like just having, the whole idea of the medical system and how it gets to this point where you're actually doing probably more damage by trying to be going through procedure than you would if you would just do the procedure, after the fact, and just, I'm saying, just do it after the fact. I mean, you have to, I thought it used to be first do no harm. You know what I'm saying? This is how women die in pregnancy. Okay, this is how women die in pregnancy. I mean, I don't want to. I don't want to. I mean, because the baby needs to. I don't even want to describe it, because you see the baby's just in her is moving, kicking, and you see, and it's not healthy. It's not a healthy state. It's not healthy for her to be sitting in that chair when she should need to be lying. Lying. I don't see what I'm saying. I'm not a woman, but I can see that you cannot keep a woman like this because of like the paperwork. That's all I'm gonna say. Like I said, it's horrifying. Geez, I hope she is healing. You know what I'm saying? I hope she's healing. I'm done.
Yeah, I hope she's healing too. Thank you for that, RBG. Then I saw Anthony McPhail in the chat. Yeah, shout out to Anthony McPhail out there in the chat saying peace, brother, to Kofi the Black Critic. I don't know what's going on with the comments for Afro Native World. Gotta try to figure that out. Yeah, I'll try to figure that out in the future. With that said, man, let's hear from our brother who has returned, Kofi. Kofi, what say you to this?
Yeah, I'm a man, and this is triggering for me. Only because my wife went something similar with this. For those who don't know, I have 5 children, and my youngest son was being born in Florida, and she came in there. She was in a lot of pain, and the fact that they're not administering any pain, she could need an epidural. She could. There's a lot of things that they could have given her to alleviate the pain. Right? We all know that since slavery, they look at us as not fully human, right? Tests has been, like surveys that have been done, and they feel that Black people have a higher tolerance for pain, right? And it's mostly, you see this mostly playing out in settings just like this one. And around that time, so that was 2008. I went through something similar habit. Like, they would not give my wife any drugs. And there were Asian, there were Asian. I don't know if they were Filipino, Chinese, Vietnamese, I don't know. Dirty knees, I don't know what they were. You know what I'm saying? But she kept saying she was in pain. And like, okay, mama, not that. I'm like, no, my wife passed out from pain with tears in her eyes. I had to scream and yell at them for them to do something to give her pain in order for her to do that. She couldn't even stay up. So this is extremely very triggering. Up to this day, we talk about that and we should sue. You know what I'm saying? That was like 17 years ago. There's so many things that could have been done. She should not be in that chair. One, she should be at least on a gurney. If she's getting picked up, right? She's getting rolled in from she's in labor or whatever. Yes, they roll you in. But when they roll you in, they're supposed to take you to a room, put you on a gurney or on a bed, right? They shouldn't be asking all this shit. Because it's obvious she came in an emergency room. She obviously came in an emergency room. This is an emergency room situation. The last thing she should be doing is going through this. This is something after the fact. So I don't know where she is or anything like that, but this is not. I'm not a medical professional, but I think I've been to the hospital long enough. I think I've been through the situation at least 4 times because my wife gave birth at home with my eldest son by herself, right? So I've been through this at least 4 times, and this is not the way you conduct it. You see someone who you love, like, to go through that kind of pain, and this is her 3rd time. But like the sister said, hey, you always say, hey, I'm going to do this, I could do that. But when you're in that situation, you don't know what you're going to do, but something like this is triggering. And hey, if you want to say, hey, give me some Indian nurses, give me some Black nurses, hey, that's fine. Say I want to object against that. But any woman that's pregnant, especially as a Black woman right now, you have to be aware of this. Even when my wife goes to the hospital, anytime in the emergency room, there's no such thing as Black people acting a fool, because we know how you are. Even Black people will probably have that same white outlook, because remember, unfortunately, we're products of our society. So white people's thinking that about Black people, you may think about the same way about Black people subliminally, not even know it. There's social experiments that people undergo, and Black people sometimes have the same outlook as white people due to propaganda, news, miseducation, misinformation. So when it comes to our lives, we cannot play. She could have complications going through this right now. The baby could be coming in feet first. The umbilical cord could be around the baby's neck. They don't know any of that. And they're asking her questions. Her life and the baby's life could be in danger. They don't know how dilated she is. They don't know if she's 3 centimeters, 4 centimeters. They don't know anything. This is insane. I'll yield the mic right there, but good topic.
Wait, Kofi, I'm sorry. First of all, daily affirmation by Pauline is with us. Still, she said, simply put, this is negligence, and I agree. But Kofi,
Agreed.
You said your wife delivered your firstborn child home alone?
Yeah, and I always say it's her fault. So, and my son was he was like 8 pounds. So I had to get up early in the morning anyway. She got up a little bit early before me, And I'm like, she's like, oh, I'm having pain. I was like, wow, you want to, go to the hospital or whatever? And there's something called Braxton Hicks contractions. It's basically contractions that feel real, but nothing's going to happen. You're not going to get dilated. You're not dilating or anything like that. So I'm getting ready to go to work. I said, are you sure? She's like, I'm fine. It's probably Braxton Hicks, contractions that I'm having. So I took the train to go to work. I got out the train. I'm in the office lobby getting, because the train station and the office lobby is like right there. So I pull my phone out. I'm calling her, and all I heard was screaming. I'm like, what happened? He's like, he's coming. Like, he's coming. Like, blah, blah, blah. And then she just, phone just fell down. She was in so much pain. And then I couldn't get her anymore. Then I called her cousin. Her cousin, don't worry, I'm coming over there. I went right back on the train to go home. And so what happened with there, she delivered him and everything. She was on the phone with 911. They say just get like a twisty tie, whatever, to tie up the umbilical cord. Ambulance came and got her, but she all by herself. And she did that kneeling. Now she's sitting. She said she was on the bed, but he said it felt better when she kneeled down in a praying position. And that's how my son was delivered. She was like kneeling down on the bed like she's praying. And then he just came that way. So if you notice in this video, she had to get up because it's probably in more pain. She's probably in more pain sitting down just like that. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of, like the sister said, this is negligence.
Oh, that's an amazing story, Coach. I'm glad that everything did work out, though. Funny enough, just a side note, I saw a post recently. I forget who it was, King Louis or somebody. But originally women used to squat to give birth and stuff like that. And the reason, maybe I shouldn't repeat that, 'cause I don't know if it's true. I didn't fact check it yet. But the claim is that women lay down because of a king's perverted outlook and all that kind of stuff. So I'll double check that before I repeat it. But thank you for that, Kofi. Wow, that's an interesting story. With that said, man, let's hear from Black Steel. Black Steel, what say you to everything?
I agree with everybody. Everybody's take so far. It is when you think about how high the maternal mortality rate for Black women in the United States is, it's actually one of the highest in the developed world. And his woman and the baby could very well have died. I don't know the consequences of this. However, I do understand that, Black people are seen to be able to withstand more pain. And it was bad because Robert Kennedy actually helped promote the same idea that Black people can withstand more pain, right? And this idea leads to situations like this, right? We have to be careful how the language is used, right? This situation is, what Kobe went through. I'm sure every Black person has a story where our concerns were ignored in the medical situation. I mean, it doesn't matter who it is. It could be regular, everyday working class folks. It could be Black celebrities. I remember Serena Williams was talking about a story where she almost died giving birth to her child. And she is a multi-million-dollar, world famous tennis player. It doesn't matter who you are in this society. If you are Black, when you go into that medical situation, you are in danger. And you would think, if you had somebody who looks like you, they would understand. But we see situations where even the Black doctors and the Black nurses have these same attitudes against Black people. There needs to be some accountability, right? Why is this I hope this nurse, whoever was ignoring this woman's concern, I hope she was fired, right? At the very least, her license be brought to review. Because again, the quote, do no harm. That's their whole ideology. You see a person in pain and you're here, filling out her chart. Is that really something that you want to do? Is that really a priority right now? Let me make sure all the I's are dotted and your intake form is complete. Bitch, what the fuck? That is not That should not be a priority. But again, black people are number one, not seen as human. Number two, we're seen as we're able to withstand the pain. So what, right? And if she dies, one less nigger in the world. That's their mentality. There has to be, we really have to, I would say we gotta establish our own hospitals, right? Our own stuff. But the problem is there's so many black people have internalized anti-black views. There's no guarantee even that would solve the problem. We're talking about hundreds of years of medical abuse against black people, black men, black women, black children, right? This is but the thing is, you can't really solve the problem unless you're willing to admit the problem exists. And for everybody who's, talks about, we had the one talks about America and, how great this country is. And yet shit like this happens on a regular basis. This one just got filmed. There's another woman who actually was turned away from the hospital. Her husband was going to drive her to another hospital and she gave birth in the car, right? But they actually turned this black woman who was in active labor away. Again, the situation where she could have died, right? There was a black woman who recently, she's a doctor who dealt with this situation. She was a big advocate for black women and giving childbirth. She died from complications from childbirth. It can happen to any sister out there, any sister. But again, we don't really. I think there's not enough awareness around the problem. I do, and I think that this stories like this is as uncomfortable as it is to see. I think it's important for us to see this because we know this is a real problem. We know this. I'm sure everybody on this panel is aware of this. Black people know how to give birth. We've been doing it for thousands of years. It's not nothing new to us. And, this is also a problem within the diaspora because of the lack of medical care, the lack of investment in hospitals and infrastructure. When you have African people who are, who are rich and wealthy. I think who was the boxer who was recently in a car accident? I think he had to leave the country to get medical care. The African leaders who, they find they have cancer and they go to Saudi Arabia because they can't get the treatment they need within their home country. So what does that say about the average everyday person? If your president has to go to Switzerland to get cancer treatment, go to England to get dialysis on a regular basis, what does that say about the average everyday person in those countries? We got a big problem we got to address.
Yeah, you're 100% correct. And I like the little caveat you threw in there. I don't know, man, I don't even know where we should begin. But in the meantime, Trigger Happy mentions that Nigerians lamenting about how bad their medical system is, but look what's happening here in America. I don't know, how do we, let's spend a few minutes trying to brainstorm here. How do we deal with this? How do we address this? Do we go back to midwifery? What is it that we do? Chat, what say you? Sister Alma, Sister Cheryl, what would you say? How do we address these issues, you think?
I think it's just when you have to start relying, we have to start doing our research. We can start relying on our elders, women, I'm sure there are some women somewhere in America where they, they successfully they have a network. They have networks and, I'm not saying every state, but certain places where they have tips on how to give birth at home. There's midwives, there's doulas, there's ancient practices from Kemet. And I think that's something where we get kind of apprehensive about because that's something that nobody really knows about. But we all, at some time or some point had a grandmother or a great grandmother who knew about these things, and it's just a matter of like passing, even if it's not your own grandparents, your ancestors, just pass that information down. We can do there's so much research to be done. I think, it's just the hospital we always use as a failsafe. And I get that. I'm not like totally ignorant of that, because what happens with people who are new to the midwifery and having a doula and not using the hospital as a first priority. Um, Sometimes you can use, what is it called? Um, it's not the hospital, but it's a birthing center. I believe those are quite different from a hospital. I think there's less intrusion from nurses and stuff like that, and it's more like family. Um, there's quite a few options. It's just a matter of, are we willing to take that step. And also, um, uh, Black women tend to have very high rates of hypertension while during pregnancy. Even if you're not pregnant yet and you plan on becoming pregnant, we have to focus on our health, eating the right foods, nothing, absolutely, if you're pregnant or you plan to become pregnant, absolutely nothing processed, lots of water, lots of fruit, the freshest that you can get, if you can do that. Um, no raw meats, or stuff like that. No meats, like heavy stuff. There's a lot of things that we can do, because Black women, we have, is every time I turn around, I see like Black women talking about, oh, I was preeclampsia, I had diabetes, I had hypertension. These are things that develop as the baby is developing inside of you, and you become more at risk for certain things. That's why you have to make sure your health, and we don't really take health that serious. I think, especially when we're pregnant, we just think we could just eat anything. We get a craving for something, we could just eat anything. So, I mean, cravings do happen, but you just got to keep in mind, like you got to be, it's got to be strict. You got to be 100% healthy when you're doing that, especially if you have a history of, um, certain not diseases, but certain things that could create setbacks for you in your health. So just focusing on that, because that all affects delivery as well.
Thanks for that, Sister Cheryl. Sister Cheryl brought up something that I was thinking about while she was talking, and she happened to talk about it. Is I don't know if we're doing that research anymore. I think we've just surrendered everything to Western science now. Black Steel mentioned how African leaders are going to Europe to do dialysis, but where's the herbalist nowadays? Where's the we used to call it bush medicine? Where's the bush medicine? Where is that now? Who's talking about it anymore? I don't think African people worldwide talk about this stuff anymore, and I think that's a shame. I think it's a
Just
shame.
one more thing. Um, there are some women who they were born on the continent. They're born in Africa. They came here to the States, and they go back to their homelands to deliver, to have their children. That's very common. So got to keep that in mind. They don't use the Western practices in the continent, which that tends to happen a lot, and that's where you're seeing all these high mortality rates of children on the continent. They go back home and they rely on their their community. And there's a reason why they do that. It's cheaper. Yeah, the flight is expensive, but in the end, it does end up coming out cheaper. And they're surrounded by family. They have people in the village that handle these things. And I think that's very telling, that you don't even want to give birth. You come to this country, but you don't even want to give birth here. You got to go back home. I think it's admirable. And I think that's something that maybe, if you have the means to do it, to consider doing that.
In the chat, Afro Native World recommends Nana Amos Wilson's book for Black women looking to get pregnant, Awakening the Natural Genius and the Developmental Psychology. So that's a good recommendation from that brother. Provide Triggers for Evolution is still with us. She says, I don't know if any of you heard Chimamanda Adichie shared chilling details on how her 21-month-old son died in Nigerian hospital. No, I didn't hear that. That's interesting. She announced on X yesterday, anesthesiologist overdosed her child who was being prepped to return to the U.S. for medical care. Wow.
Cool. I just want to say, you notice when we start talking about some real shit, and all of our conversations are real stuff, right? We start talking about some real shit. You see how quiet the trolls are? They got nothing. All they do is cause dissension within our ranks, which is why I said the CIA is in the chat. Because the minute they saw this black woman screaming in pain, it got quiet. They didn't have anything to say about FBA and tethers, all the other bullshit. Okay, you notice how quiet they got. I know some of them might have been blocked too, but at the same, good job on the moderators. But at the same time, they're never around for the real stuff, the meat and potatoes that affects African people. When we have our sisters dying like this, we have our brothers being killed, they want to sit up and talk about tethers, and we should just focus on survival. FBA, get the fuck out of here, man. They really piss me off because all that their main goal is just to spread confusion and dissension within our ranks. All right. And we have to really understand we're dealing with real traitorous elements within our community. And we gotta be dealt with, but back to the original prompt, I was looking up doulas, right? And the cost of a doula is actually somewhat expensive. And usually they're not covered by insurance. So a lot of times you got to pay $2,000, $3,000 up front. I was looking up in my area, they were talking about $3,000 for a doula. And that's out of the reach for many poor people. I don't know if maybe there's a way to bring down the cost. Maybe payment plans might be in effect, but that's just something I thought about. If average cost is $5,000, Jesus, that's expensive. That's the average cost. If you go into a big city like New York, LA, Chicago, whatever, it's probably going to be more if there's one available. So it's just something to think about. Even the more healthier, the more safe options, in many ways, out of reach for a lot of people. And a lot of people, they're forced to go to a hospital because that's the only place that they can get care. And they should be able to get care. If you are a person, you need help, and you go to the place that's supposed to help you, they should fucking help you. That's the way it should be. But unfortunately for Black people, nothing comes easy for us. Everything is a struggle. We've been given nothing. Everything that we have as African people, somebody had to fight, somebody had to die for it. So that's just my thought. Sorry.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Provide Triggers for Evolution says that I stayed away from gynecologists for both of my pregnancies. My first was with a personal midwife in a hospital setting, and the second was a home birth with a midwife as well. Afro was asking me if there's traditional midwives in the Bahamas. I don't. As we were talking about this, I was thinking about it. I don't remember. I know that, you'll hear from your grandmothers and stuff like that there was always a woman in the neighborhood who will come around and kind of coach you and this, that, and the other. In fact, I think my grandmother was like that with some people in the neighborhood too. But I don't remember off the top of my head sitting here right now. I don't really remember knowing anyone who was actually a midwife personally. Yeah, I don't remember that. Now, I'm from the capital. I'm from New Providence, so it's a little different. If you go in some of those out islands, I'm sure there's midwives and stuff heavy out there. But in Nassau, nah. Not to my memory. Not to my memory. Man, real good discussion tonight, everybody. And thank all of you for joining us here tonight. But before you guys leave off the panel and leave the chat and stuff, let's let's do what we tend to do on a Saturday night, which is, at the end of a Shoot the Breeze session, is give a shout out, something positive you experienced or witnessed or saw or heard of in the Black world or in your own neck of the woods, something positive that happened, for Black people in general, man. You guys in the chat, start putting it up. I'll read them off before we head off the air. Sister Cheryl, what would you like to shout out this week? I guess Cheryl went to.
Sorry. I guess I'll shout out. I'm shouting out Buana. Just want to say condolences to him in his situation. Just want to bring some attention to that, more attention to that.
Appreciate that, Sister Cheryl. Kofi, would you like to shout out this week?
I would like to shout out to all the Black people in Venezuela and to the Guyanese people holding down that border. And also, take a little bit of Venezuelan territory back. If you know the history of Guyana, Venezuela took a lot of territory of Guyana during Guyanese independence and other situations where we were like being busy. So yeah, I kind of want Guyana to take back some of the land back. Join the Discord, everybody. Please join the Bitter Medicine podcast Discord. If you've seen the Discord, you can see someone in Guyana drew new borders that went from Guyana and took over all of Venezuela. So, I just want to shout out to the Guyanese people and the Black Venezuelans, and to, besides Maduro, his father, Cesar Chavez. That was a man to be admired. If you guys remember Cesar Chavez, I learned a lot about Venezuela. He gave recognition to a lot of Black Venezuelans, right? And he gave them a lot of rights. He gave them a lot of recognition. There's a day on recognizing Black Venezuelans. If you guys remember further back, obviously, Venezuela always had conflict with the United States because obviously want their oil. Trump just said it, the quiet part out loud that we always know. But I remember during the time of the Obama administration, and he was chastising Cesar Chavez, and Cesar Chavez was saying like, okay, you worried about what's going on over here in my country, how I'm ruling my country, but in your country, you're a quote unquote Black man, and you got Black people being killed in the streets. What type of president are you? And I was just like, bravo. So I just want to shout out to all the Black Venezuelans, the people in Trinidad with Trump, bombing on Trinidad and fishermen. Fuck Nicki Minaj. She don't care about her own countrymen. Trinidadian people, being bombed. So I just want to say shout out to the Black people in the Caribbean, just holding it down.
Good stuff there, Kofi. Yeah, shout out to Guyana and that area of land that's kind of been under dispute between Guyana and Venezuela. Real Black Gentleman, RBG, what would you like to shout out this week?
I want to shout out. I want to shout out the podcast, this forum. I've been away for a while. I've kind of been busy. Honestly, my schedule's just hodgepodge right now. I'm doing a lot right now, so I'm not as much. I'm just doing a lot. But I just want to give a shout out, like, for as long as I've been here, just like the people, Tanzan, I remember, like, Erzuliism, Bakari, everyone who I've had the honor to be able to speak with around this world about, even if I don't agree with everything you do, or some things I'm just like, it kind of just vex me. Like, it's important. Like this, like in times like these, you gotta be able to speak and understand how, it's like how the fish are swimming, how the formation's going, how, what I'm saying? Like, I see Africa is always at a crossroads. It can do so much. Black people around the world can do so much. It just takes a lot of just concerted effort. One thing I wanted to answer is like to the last question about one thing that, you know, health in general, like investing in health is always it just the rewards on it are always just it's always good. So I'll also give a shout out to just Black health workers in general too, because like anything that you can do to help a nurse, a Black doctor, it will always pay off. I mean, unless they're crooked, but you know, Black health is inherently like a righteous thing. I mean, people want to be healthy. People will always constantly learn, you know, constantly want to get better. That's the health profession as a doctor. You'll always want to like keep getting better. You just have to. Physician, heal thyself. So shout out, you know what I'm saying, to this podcast and the Black health. That, you know what I'm saying, that's my shout out.
Appreciate that, RBG. Just real quick before I go to Black Steel, African World says that Barlovento is the blackest part of Venezuela. Is that the disputed region? Is that near that disputed region that could be Guyana, could be Veni? Is that area?
I will have to check that out. I'm not that familiar.
Okay. Provide Triggers for Evolution says, shout out to the condemnation of the U.S. at the UNSC with regards to the kidnapping of Maduro. Daily Affirmation by Pauline says, shout out to Koku and guests for continuing to rep the diaspora. Appreciate that. Daily Affirmations by Pauline. Provide Trigger says, my condolences to Buana as well. And Afro World says, not that I know. Okay. So with that said, Black Steel, man, you're the anchor. What would you like to shout out this week?
Well, shout out to my son for receiving his first speeding ticket.
Oh, man. Okay.
It came in the mail. Boy, you got to be careful, boy, because there's cameras everywhere. Shout out to everyone who's lost someone recently. You know, it's been a rough couple of weeks. Shout out my cousin. He was in the hospital. He had a really bad asthma attack. He was in the hospital over New Year's, but he's out now. And shout out to the young lady who was in the video, man. I hope she's doing well with her family and her babies. You know, shout out to all the mothers out there who go through what they go through every day just to give us life, man. The Black woman is really the bringer of life, and I think that gets overlooked so many times. So those are my thoughts, and thanks. Shout out to everybody again on the panel.
Appreciate that, Black Steel. What happened to Tanzan? Well, that's a great question that we've wondered for a couple of years now. We don't know. But my shout out is to Brother Bakari. It's his birthday. So shout out to you. I know if we didn't see Brother Bakari, that means he's having a good time with his family, with his lady, etc. So shout out to you. Happy birthday. Shout out again to Buana. Like I told y'all, I spoke to Buana as the show was beginning, and well, he sent me a voice note and he told me, you know, he's hanging in there, and thanks for checking in on him. So shout out to Buana on the passing of his mom and her being laid to rest today. And shout out to all of you who was here today, giving good conversations during and staying on topic while we were doing it. I appreciate all of you, and you guys actually make it where I look forward to coming here on a Saturday night to talk with you guys. We'll be back next week. Like Kofi said, join the Discord. Post up your topics on the Shoot the Breeze topics, and they'll be discussed here as well. You could post topics on books and leave an excerpt. It's up to you. But join us and help us make these conversations more robust as we go forward. So until next time, you guys be good. Peace.
Thanks for listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast with your host, Koku. If you like what you just heard, We hope you pass along our web address, bitamedicineblogs.com, to your friends and colleagues, and share our show to all your social media. Be sure to check out our archive section on our website for previous podcasts. This has been a KWAZ radio production. Join us next time for another session of the Beta Medicine Podcast. Follow us on Facebook at Beta Medicine Show, Twitter, Beta Meds, Tumblr, Beta Meds, Instagram, Beta Medicine.